All right, everyone. Welcome to Tiger Talk Thursday. We are on episode 65, and you are in for a treat. Welcome, Lisa Longball, to the call. How are you?
I'm great. It is so wonderful to finally reconnect again
I
after
know.
meeting at our women's conference together.
I know, I love it. For those of you that are new to this series, I started this after having the unfortunate loss of some athletes that were found deceased in their homes who could not move on after sports, and just felt this nudge that we needed to start having the conversation that we are human, we are beyond the jersey on our back, and for anyone that is going through injury, retirement, or some unforeseen circumstance that's forced you to hang up the jersey, this is a community of athletes that are committed to that mission and vision of helping anyone that might be suffering in silence, any transition. But let's quickly introduce our guests. We've got Lisa Longball, Vlooswyk.
Nailed it.
Did I say it? Okay.
Yep,
Sorry.
perfect.
Didn't want to butcher. Okay.
This is why you
Lisa...
don't marry Dutch people, Janine. No one can spell or pronounce their last name.
Vlooswyk. I got it. Okay. Lisa is an 8-time Canadian long drive champion and has finished as high as second in the world. She competed on the Golf Channel's World Long Drive Association Tour and competed at 18 World Long Drive Championships. She is an LDA Tour champion and Callaway Golf sponsored athlete. Amazing. She was the first woman to ever hit it the length of 3.5 NFL football fields in competition. Hear me again. 3.5 NFL football fields. That's insane. Lisa won Golfweek magazine's Golf Fest Entertainer of the Year award, which, if anybody follows her on social media, you got to check out her whatever she does behind her boat. You got to check. Just go check it out.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. In addition to her competitive career, Lisa is a golf journalist for several publications, including Inside Golf Magazine, and has had her own column in Golf Digest Canada. Amazing. Lisa uses her vast experience as a world-class athlete to be a successful keynote peak performance speaker at conferences and conventions, is a golf entertainer for many corporate charity golf tournaments across North America, including PGA Tour, amazing, and Champions Tour events, and runs her own golf school for women, both in Canada and the United States. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Well, let's just dive right in. How did you get started into golf?
You know, it's funny. So I was my dad's last hope as a golfer. I was in grade 8. My mom didn't play. My sister didn't play. So my dad dragged me out to the local junior night. There were 60 boys and me. And this was back in the 1980s. So there weren't a lot of strong junior girls golf programs back then. Now there are, but there wasn't back then. Coach kind of takes one look at me and he said, Lisa, why don't you go hit your 6-iron at the end of the range? And he proceeded to work with the boys the rest of the evening. So I actually quit. I quit and maybe played 9 holes a year with my dad if he forced me. And it wasn't until my 20s when my boyfriend at the time, now husband, graduated from university. He was a farm kid from rural Alberta, didn't golf a lick, and he realized he was missing out on key business networking opportunities. So he dragged me to the local muni so he could practice and play. And that's truly how I got started.
That's incredible. I love it. Now, one thing we touch along our journey, obviously, you were an athlete before your 20s. So what did you do when you were younger?
So see, and this is as you get it, Janine, as an athlete. Like the reason I'm a 100-year-old old mom that can hit it the length of 3.5 NFL football fields is I was an elite gymnast. So I competed in trampoline and tumbling for Canada before trampoline was an Olympic sport.
Where was this in your bio?
Oh yeah, did I forget that? I know the bio
it's not in your bio
enough. So
I mean, that's kind of important,
right? Well, I guess so. Here's the thing: like, I think gymnastics is the basis of all sport: balance, flexibility, explosive power, strength, speed, which again makes you. It's all transferable to so many sports. So for me, when I was brand new at golf, all of a sudden I'm rip and driver. Like I ended up going into my first competition. I couldn't break 100 to save my life, but I was hitting it 80 to 100 yards past the other girls because I took a good rip at it. And I absolutely credit my background as a gymnast. And then not only did it help my golf, but you talk about what was your background as an athlete. After I retired from trampoline and tumbling at the ripe old age of high school, right? I went into track and
Isn't
field.
That insane? Like the training,
right?
It's
like
crazy.
It's so crazy.
I know.
And so I competed for the University of Calgary in track and field. So we did more. It was like the heptathlon, but it's an indoor season in Canadian universities. So it was The running was hurdles, the jumping was long jump, and the throwing was shot put. So I did that all through. So it was basically like when I graduated from university, ooh, what can I compete in now? You get it as an athlete,
Oh,
right?
I know. You know what? And I talk a lot about this with my athletes, is that a need for the external validation. We almost get bored if it's like, okay, what can I do? Like I remember it was like, oh, I'll do a marathon. Okay. Want to do a triathlon? Okay, I'll do a sprint triathlon. Oh, you can do a fitness show. Oh, I can do a fitness show. Like if you can do it, I can do it. I definitely, that carried me through a majority of my life. But there is usually a season or something that happens in our life that can throw a wrench in our plans, or we stumble, like for me, obviously divorce, bankruptcy, and breast cancer, but this is not about me. What do we not see? And I know you're an open book, so I can ask you this
Oh,
honestly.
100%.
We find all the glory online. What
Yeah.
part of Lisa's life have we not seen online that was a year where you just really had to take a step back, and it was kind of just a wrench in your either athletic career or your
Oh, yeah.
life? What really stood out to you, and but really then transformed you into this new version of yourself?
I love that. For me, I think first of all, I believe teaching is a vocation, a calling. I always wanted to be a
Mhm.
teacher. So after I graduated from the University of Calgary, I became a school teacher. I was teaching grade 5 and 6 when I discovered this weird, freaky ability to hit a golf ball a long way. And
You
I
gotta
think for
call up
me,
Adam Sandler
right,
and be
right, like
like,
it's
we really do. We gotta find him and get him on here with you.
right. And so for me, when I first started competing and then I started getting better at golf, and my very first year on tour, I had a last place, I had a second last place, a 15th. And again, being a professional golfer isn't like being a professional athlete in other sports. Baseball, basketball, football, you get paid whether you ride pine, whether you're injured, whether you lose every game. In golf, you're out your entry fees, your travel expenses. It's very different.
Yeah.
So being a school teacher, it's not like I had an abundance of cash flow at the time. And I was this close. I remember flying to Atlanta, Georgia. I hit 6 balls out of bounds. And I sat on the plane just thinking, I suck. I'm not good enough. This is too hard. And it was really difficult. Like every single time you go and compete, to come so low on the totem pole and feel like you're not succeeding and not doing well and that you're a failure, you feel like you're getting beat up a lot. And so I was this close to quitting. And I think that year I learned so much more about myself. And as I went through my years, and if you look back, as you said, when was that turning point? That was my turning point, because it's either sink or swim, right?
Hmm.
So you can either turn it around and give it a go or quit. And that was my year that I said, nope, come on, Lisa, work harder, train harder. What are you missing? And I learned so much more from my failures that year, and
Yeah,
having absolutely no success that year,
it's
to,
true.
to actually what led me to coming second in the world.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And I think it, I have read in different books, when we are presented with that type of opportunity to ask ourselves, is this what we're meant to do? You
Yeah.
really truly learn, is this a true goal that's on my heart, or am I just doing this to do it for some other reason? And like, I think about my goals and trying to push them forward. I mean, I'm like 14, 15 years in, and and that keeps showing up, tagline that I use. I mean, it really is the foundation of, figure it out,
100%.
and then another door opens. But I do think those moments are blessings in
It
disguise,
was. It's
because
made
it
me who I
forces you to
am.
jump 2 feet in, right?
100%. Well, so here's the other thing. You get it. You have to jump 2 feet in.
Yeah.
It was actually, I realized that I was absolutely passionate about teaching, but I also realized I had this gift to hit a golf ball such a long way. And so that I
Then one from
really had a chance.
Calgary to Ottawa.
Right? Seriously. But I legitimately had a
Yeah.
chance to be the best in the world at something. And unfortunately, you can't have a full-time job. So it's pretty scary in your
Yeah.
20s to, all of a sudden quit your job, which you absolutely love and are passionate about, and a pension. Janine, who has a pension anymore, right?
But
I had
let's also talk about your hubby. Like, a lot of people see these athletes and we see the glory and we see that, but there's a family and there's people behind the athlete that are frustrated because their vision of how their life is supposed to go.
yeah.
Like, my husband always jokes, he's like, never marry a hockey player.
But you're Janine, you're so right.
Yeah.
Because honestly, my husband married an elementary school teacher, like wearing Winnie the Pooh sweaters with
Yeah,
matching
he thought
earrings.
you'd be like catering to him, right? Not being
Right? Right? But I will say that you have to, what I've realized for success, you have to surround yourself with people who support
Mm.
you. It was the day I had to make the decision whether I had to either resign my school teaching position to pursue my dream of trying to become the world long drive champion, or quit competing on an international scale and just do golf for fun or the odd competition. He left me a card on the table that day. And basically the card said, you know, Lisa, you have a limited chance to be the best in the world in something. Do it. And I
Oh,
signed
I
my
just got
letter of
chills.
resignation that next day and didn't make, you know, $2 that next year, because that, right, and that's stressful, not knowing where your next paycheck's going to come from, but just trusting it. And then for me to have such a tough year on my first year on tour, and so you talk about those difficult times, those difficult years, and then
Yeah, it's a test to see how much you're willing to go for it.
100%.
And I do believe in all my interviews,
Yeah.
this is a common thread when you talk to the best of the best, because everybody wants to quit. Everyone's faced with roadblocks. Everyone's faced with stressors from their family. Someone gets sick, a dog passes away, they go through a breakup, they have
Mhm.
financial stress of some sort. I mean, but the dreams are dream for a reason, and there's a reason,
100%.
you know, I don't need to understand it. And it's amazing the people. I find it's interesting how everybody has a say in your goals and dreams. And it's like you really have to shut out the noise, because
Oh, it took
people
me a
with good
while to learn
intentions.
that. It took me
Yes.
a
So
while.
tell us about your experience with that, because there's a lot of athletes that I talk to. I was talking to a gentleman today, and he was talking about imposter syndrome. And I
Oh,
know I've had to overcome that. I don't find it comes up for me as much anymore, because I've pushed so far forward in this lane of mine that
yeah,
I have the confidence and I have the belief, because I've fallen flat on my face and had to pick myself back up again.
yeah.
But it's not one or two times. This is like multiple times to get to this type of confidence. Talk to us about your experience with that.
Well, I think for me, it's there was, as I said, there's so many times that you feel you want to quit, but it's an
Mhm.
inner drive.
Yeah.
That's actually the title of my keynote speech is "Drive Determines Distance." And what I came to find over years of having difficulties and failures and not achieving my goals or coming anywhere close to my goals, what is it that comes back to it? And it's a belief. It's like I had this a goal. It is being committed to those goals. So I had to realize, really drill down as to what's important to me. And for me, I had a goal to win the World Long Drive Championships, and so that, you know, I wanted to win my Canadian Long Drive Championships and compete on a tour down in the U.S. And do that. And when I won, like, to have failure after failure, and I had 2, 3 tough years on the long drive tour, but then to finally win my first tour event in Des Moines,
It was
Iowa.
all worth it.
I beat the reigning world champion and two former world champions. I was just the elation, the joy that you learn from that. It's just you can't even compare, because you know how hard you've worked for that moment.
Mhm.
So I think that part of it is acknowledging that, you know, you're going to struggle, you're going to fail, but that's hard at first. But when you talk about surrounding yourself, you know, with people who support you, because you have to pick and choose who you listen to and who's
Mhm.
your confidants. And for me, like, having great coaches and also fellow long drivers that I was competing against, because there's a lot of women out there that tear each other down. And you know,
Mm.
I'm sure you've experienced that yourself in sport. And you have to intentionally surround yourself with women, I find you know, being a female athlete, that lift each other up. And
Yeah.
so, and then that's now become my new life purpose and passion, is women helping women.
Well, there's more than enough to go around. I mean, there's only one you, and there's only
Right?
one me. And for anyone listening, there's only one you. So, I
100%.
mean, there's your own perspective. I know it takes time to understand and learn that and cultivate. I get that.
100%.
One thing that you said to me that I feel is magical, and I talk to a lot of athletes about sports are what you do. They're not who you are. But you really outlined the beautiful part of the journey that we go on. And I think that's what I've learned about myself is I'm addicted to the process.
Oh,
And I love the going after a goal. It's not that I have this void to fill. It's not,
nope.
I mean, in the past, this need for when I went through breast cancer, I did recognize what I did for external validation. And then I had to reconnect with myself through meditation and journaling and removing myself from life for a bit to just reflect on everything I had gone through. But that process, I have learned to just, I love it. It's like sharpening your
Absolutely.
pencil. I
You know
love
the way I
creating
frame
and
it. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. The way I frame it for myself is that, you know, yes, I had all these failures. Yes, I had these difficult times and moments. But think about all the experiences I wouldn't have had I
Exactly.
quit. Had that day on the plane in Atlanta, I decided this is just too hard. I'm not good enough. So did I win the world championships? No, I've come second in the world twice. I lost my last when I was second in the world was 2016. I lost to a five-time world champion from Sweden. The Swedes. No, Sandra Karlberg, she's awesome. But you know, so I never achieved that goal of winning the world title. Second in the world by 3 yards, but it's all those, it's the journey. To your point, it's the journey along the way. I had a chance, I've met Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Kevin Costner, Tom Cochran, like the
Yeah.
stories that I've had that have
I
become
know.
my life journey of trying to reach this goal, which I didn't end up achieving second, so close, but I wouldn't give any of it away. I wouldn't change really any of it because of the experiences I had along the way on that journey.
And I love that. And I mean, anyone listening can feel passion and energy. I love it. Let's go back to mindset because you've said a couple times, and we all have that voice in our head that can doubt ourselves, or I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. How did you bridge the gap between the unworthy version of Lisa to the I'm just going to try again? What did you do in between? Was it, again, you talk a lot about community and surrounding
Yeah.
yourself, but is there a system or something that you find has worked for you that maybe a younger athlete could adopt as their own to help them build that confidence towards their goals and dreams? Like, what advice would you give to a younger athlete or to your younger self, maybe?
My advice would be, and especially to younger athletes and to my younger version of myself, give yourself grace. Because I think I beat
Yeah.
myself up a lot at first and was really hard on myself. So give yourself grace that it's okay to fail and you're going to learn from that. But
Yeah.
B, you have to put in the work. There are absolutely no shortcuts. And I think that if you really want to have this crazy big hairy goal, there are no shortcuts. You literally have to be able to, are you willing to do what the next person beside you isn't willing to do?
Yeah.
And whether that's adding to your fitness or training, hitting balls, for in my case, what is it that you're willing to do that the next person isn't? And so if I could give any advice, it's to give yourself grace, and you have to make time to put the effort in. And that's when I got better. When I started to see my coach more, I put the reps in at the driving range. I watched my video, with my coach, and where was I going wrong, and how do I fix this? And okay, I wasn't finishing my golf swing or this, but you have to be laser focused on that, and a goal to make it all happen. You have, yes, I had my big goal of winning the world championships, but you have to have little mini goals along the way so that you do have some little bits of success and then that's going to help push you and encourage you to keep going, to be like, okay, I got to this step, now it's the next step, now it's the next step, to eventually end at that big crazy hairy goal.
Yeah, for sure. And while you're going through all of this, you have all these other versions of Lisa. So there's teacher, there's mom, there's wife. What
Well, the
else is there?
mom was an interesting one because I knew that for me, being a mom was non-negotiable. It was
Mm.
something that I've always wanted, but everyone kept telling me, "Oh, Lisa, once you become a mom, you'll never be world class again." Oh, by the way, when I came second in the world, I that was after I became a mom. I was the first pregnant athlete at the world. I was the first pregnant athlete at the World Long Drive Championships. I was 6.5 months pregnant. I came top 10 in the world, which was
How did you
that
get
was just
around?
such a
How did you get
thrill,
around your belly?
right? Around the baby bump, and it was like just this unbelievable experience to be able to do that. But being a mom, so that's the other, any advice I can give to your listeners. Know to your core what your values are and what's important to you. Don't give those up for sport. Make it work together. And again, I
Yeah.
think after becoming a mom, you want to talk about becoming laser focused. Your time becomes so valuable
Yeah.
when you realize you have this much time, to practice or this, and everything's condensed so that you can give back to your family as much as humanly possible as well. So, and then what's so cool is now fast forward 17 years later, and my son's at a point of being an elite athlete himself. It's
I
his
know you the
NHL
hockey.
draft year. And
Wow.
it's crazy, that he has this opportunity to potentially be drafted to the NHL, which is since he was a little boy. So part of that as a mom, I feel like I have passed that along to my son, and what that work ethic looks like, and what
Yeah.
that drive and passion and determination, and surrounding yourself with people who support you, how to get to that level. So it's so cool to see that come full circle.
Yeah, I love that. And congratulations. I've seen his journey. I've commented on some of your social media. So
Which, as a hockey player, and
yeah.
as you being an elite hockey player, and me not really being able to skate backwards, I so appreciate that, right? Because you get it. You get
Yeah,
how hard that is.
it is. I mean, I think you hit it on the nail on the head. The work ethic piece can't be mistaken. I mean, I've had some of the top, I mean, Chris Pronger was on. He's like, even at
Oh,
the NHL level, Janine, you've got to put the work in. The guys that are sitting on their phone complaining about what people are saying them, it's like, do your job, just get it done. And all the greats put in extra time outside of their regular training. You see it all the time. You
100%. You
see it.
can't just do what everyone else is doing. You can't.
No. And I'd be curious, you're the gymnast, Lisa, and the golfer, Lisa. Would you have different advice for her? Like
You know what? Yes. You know
gymnastics
what?
is so
100%, because
yeah,
I was so young. You know
yeah.
what? This is interesting. I quit the year before World Championships. I quit. I had a coach that I felt was so hard on me,
Well,
and
gymnastics in it is a very hard
this is in
sport.
gymnastics.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
my gymnastics coach was so hard on me, and I just felt so down every time. And you know what? I ended up quitting the year before I was to compete at the World Championships in trampoline and tumbling. And it was only afterwards, when my coach was talking to my mom, did the coach say, it's only because I saw Lisa had so much potential. I was being harder on her,
Mm,
but I wish we could have talked about it. I wish we could have had that conversation. So what I would give advice again to my younger self is have those conversations.
mm,
Talk, make sure that you don't hold feelings in. You don't want to make this rash decision, this huge decision in your life, that really, I would have loved to have that opportunity to see, well, where would I have ranked in at the Worlds at that time. But I quit all because I was upset with how a coach was treating me, and I thought he was
and
being.
how old were you around then?
Oh, that would have been grade 8.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
worked with two 16-year-old gymnasts and they really struggled to transition, but they left the sport because of the negativity from the coaching staff, which I do believe it's the discipline. And I know that in the world today, they're rebranding kind of like how we are coaching the next generation. How do you feel about, like, I grew up with a father that was very strict and I respond to a coach that's quite difficult. Like I like a firm hand,
Oh yeah.
but I know, and then you've got the like, well, you can't be disrespectful in that. And I was like, I like when
No,
someone was
no,
hard on
because
me, but
it's
what's,
about it's about a respect, and
yeah.
it's about so I
What do you
was
think
so.
coaches are missing?
I want to talk to you about being tough, because I don't want you to, like, I don't want you to think, oh, well, I want the nice, warm, oh,
Yeah.
Lisa, you're awesome. Because I actually had this coach. I was so lucky. Les Romantic was from Romania, Olympic pole vaulter, came to Canada, and he was the head coach for Canada's Olympic track and field team. How lucky was I that he happened to be working out of the University of Calgary? So Michael Smith from Ontario, when he was coming to work on with decathlon and prepare for the Olympics, he came and trained with us. Katrina LeMay-Doan, in her off season from speed skating, she would come train with us because he was the best of the best in Canada. I got to train with him at the University of Calgary. I literally think Les gave me 3 compliments in 4 years, but I was never discouraged by that. When he gave me that compliment, it was the sun, the moon, and the stars.
So what
So
did he
it's
do
not, it's,
differently from the
yeah.
coaches?
So he was strict and he was tough, but I always still felt cared about. So I think for
Mm.
coaches, it's good. I think you do need rules and strict and tough. You can't be all like, oh, participation ribbon, everyone, here you go,
Yeah,
yay.
no, I know.
No, be strict, be tough. As long as your athlete knows that you care about them, they'll give you everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you most proud about in all your years? And it doesn't have to be an athletic accomplishment. When you think
Mm.
back to like, you know what, Lisa, that was pretty cool. We did that. I always, when I say we, I always think of like my inner child and that voice
Yeah.
that I find when we have those growth years, we're constantly, it's a battle between your outer, what you think you should do, what your heart's saying you should do. What are you most proud of that you've had to overcome on your journey?
That's an excellent question. It's funny. I think back immediately. You think of athletic accomplishments like winning my first national title. Being a captain for Team Canada, and beating the United States in a head-to-head competition in a North American Cup. Coming second in the world. All those moments were just
Yeah.
unbelievable for me. But if I really had to really drill down to it, it actually literally happened this past week. I started women's golf schools because I would go to all these corporate and charity golf outings all across North America. 75 to 85% of the attendees were men. Where were all the women? The women were often back in the office doing the work while the guys were smartly doing the networking, because women didn't feel comfortable or confident saying yes to that golf invitation, or didn't think they were good enough and didn't want to embarrass themselves. So that's where I started this women's golf school. But Janine, yesterday, I flew home yesterday from Palm Springs, but this past week at my school, I had a student, and on the last day, this is what she shared with me. She said, Lisa, she said, I did these golf videos over COVID, over the pandemic. I'm sponsored by Golf Town, and I did these really cool golf videos for any golfer, men and women, to help get better. And they were very, very popular and viewed all over. She said, Lisa, she said, I have had breast cancer. She said, I had many chemotherapy appointments. She said, I watched your videos. Every chemotherapy appointment, I watched your videos. She said, I ended up having a double mastectomy. She told me this literally 2 days ago. She said, I had a double mastectomy. She said, and your videos inspired me to get strong. And I wanted to get strong so that I could one day attend your school. And then she said to me with tears in her eyes, she said, I got strong enough. I'm here. I did your school. And now we're both crying. And
I'm getting teary-eyed. I'm a breast cancer survivor.
Right. So here it
Yeah.
goes from, oh, that's great, my athletic accomplishments and things I worked really hard for.
Yeah.
But to know that I can inspire other women, that I can help other women, that I could be a bright spot in a really difficult time for women, to me, that is truly what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, we're on the same page there. I totally agree. I love that. And I love that you've got this incredible energy. And this is one thing that I do see when I walk into a locker room or a team. It's like, where is the energy? Where is the passion? Like, what would you do to get that out of someone? And I know if I have one-on-one time with someone and they eventually let me in and I can see the change in the body language, and it's like, oh, what just happened there? I saw you actually, like, your body changed, but we've got these generation, and I know there's devices and we talk about cell phone use and all that stuff. But what advice for the younger generation? Like, I tell my kids all the time, do you know how easy it is to stand out today? Because everybody's like a walking zombie. And I don't mean that in a general statement, but
you're not wrong.
It's like the 100%. Energy and the passion. Is it because we have so much opportunity that we don't see that the opportunity is actually limited? Like, what do you think from your perspective it is, and how do we get our younger generation up and moving and more passionate about their goals?
Well, I think part of it does lie with our generation, that, and you ask, where does that, the energy and the passion, and how do we give that to that next generation? I think that well, first of all, you can't be a fake. You can't fake. And I know there's people that pretend to be excited, enthusiastic.
No, you can tell.
You can tell. It's got to come from here. It truly has to come from here. And I think where you're really going to impact people, you have to do something that you're passionate about, and you have to share it. And be, but it's got to be real. And I think for me, where it becomes contagious, so that passing it to that next generation, it starts with you. So it starts with our generation, that we're excited, that we get excited for someone, that we truly, are throwing everything into it for them to then, that it's
modeling it. You got to modeling
it. And that they can feed off of that. I love what you said. I think you're right. It is really easy to stand out these days, because if there's anything that I think we should get, like, holy cow, in locker rooms and the amount of time that is wasted by athletes that are
even by coaches trying to say, put your phones away.
100%. 100%.
They just started to ban them in the schools here, where you can't use them. Thank goodness, because it's like, I that blew my mind. I'm like, I'm sorry. Going to school is like me going to work. I'm here to learn. You're here to learn, and you're with your peers. It's like, since when do you get to decide when you're on your phone? I don't know. That just wasn't an option for me growing up. And I mean, I didn't have a cell phone until way later, and I know times are changing.
As a former educator, I couldn't be more proud and happy that is what's happening in schools, because it is so distracting to kids. And so hard on them. What can happen, what in our generation was note passing and kind of a little bit of the cruelty that can happen through that. Imagine how easy it is to bully kids, and it's so difficult. And then how do you get beat up online? And the same with me. Like, here I was doing these videos for Golf Town, and I would get literally 700 comments per video, and the 695 would be absolutely amazing and bright and make my day. Janine, I would have 5.
And you'd obsess over them?
And mean. It sucked me down.
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't sleep at night over them. I was so upset about them. I beat myself up. But and isn't it interesting with human nature? Why do we focus on the 5 crappy ones when there was literally 695 amazing ones? But I was sucked into this negative dark vortex
Yeah.
by these 5 people, and it was you know, that could have been having a bad day, or you know, they were cranky, or I reminded them of their ex, or I don't know what,
It's
but I
because when we're
felt really
younger, we
ticked.
seek attachment and we need attachment to be taken care of to live. So we always abandon our authenticity for attachment. But until you learn belief and confidence, that authenticity can't come out. But I really was like a people pleaser. I
Yeah.
suffered with that as well. And I really had to do a lot of work around not worrying
Yeah.
what other
And
people
I'm getting the
thought.
same here.
Yeah.
I've grown a lot in the last 4
Yeah.
years from
It's
that
funny.
time,
We all do it. We worry
but
what
it
other
still
people think.
hurts. I'm still
Yeah. Oh,
smushy,
I know.
and it still hurts. But I just
I
can't believe
know.
how mean. I can't believe how
I
mean and
know.
unkind, you know,
Keyboard
keyboard
warriors.
warriors, right? It's
Yeah.
so easy to write mean, crappy things about people online. And you know, but even just surfing, even just I couldn't, if I could
Oh,
say anything to athletes, just scrolling through or binge watching on Netflix. And I'm not saying I haven't done it, because I love a great movie and a great series, but the time that wastes and the
Mhm.
time that takes away from
Well, yeah.
you
You're in
working
the
out
prime stage of your craft. It's different if you're 55,
100%.
60 on a couch and you've accomplished what you've wanted to accomplish. But if it's a matter of you putting time into your craft, I mean but kids are being robbed of that and they don't know any better, right?
They don't
Because
realize it.
yeah, I know. And then eventually they're like, oh, I'm 20. What am I going to do now?
Honestly, well, I was on the plane down to my school in Palm Springs, and I think Snapchat drives me crazy. All these inane pictures, taking a picture of the ceiling, your shoes, whatever else, and the 742 times that a child's phone will vibrate throughout the day as you're getting new snaps. And I thought, okay, this must just be teenagers. Like this will end. This will end, because it drives me crazy. The guy beside me on the plane, he said, I was like, oh, are you down here for work? And he's like, no, I'm going to a wedding. And he had mentioned that he was 30, and he was there. He was snapping pictures of his shoes, the carpet. And I'm like, oh my God, like, please tell me that my
Yeah.
son 23 years from now is not going to, or sorry, 13 years from now is going to be doing this, right?
I know. Let's talk about transitions to life after sport. So obviously you're still very much involved in the sport that you love, which is amazing. But there's always, when you decided to switch from a competitor to more of on the coaching side, what was that time frame like? Did you struggle or did you jump right into it? Or did you go through some sort of, because I always think about the listener who is struggling on like what's next for me, and they're listening in, they haven't shared, like, I mean, again, I started this because 2 friends were found deceased in their homes, and it's like we don't have to go down that road, but it
No,
doesn't mean that you don't have thoughts of like, what
of
now, what's
course.
next, who am I, what am I supposed to do? I've done this since I was 5 for some athletes, right? What
Right.
advice would you have, and what was that experience like for you?
Well, you talk about regrets. I actually I have another regret, and that is, you know, while I was at the height of my career and training to become a world champion, that's also when I was being invited to go to corporate and charity golf tournaments. Oh, come be a keynote speaker, and all of a sudden I was so you know, I was trying to do like too many things. I was world class athlete trying to compete at the world championships and win a world title, and then I was running my own golf school. I was an entertainer at corporate charity golf tournaments, and I'm a keynote speaker,
Mhm.
and I'm a brand ambassador. So I was wearing so many hats. I actually, part of me believes quite strongly that had I just focused on training, I feel I could have won a world title if I
Yeah,
wasn't doing all of those things. So
there's
that's
I think there's
interesting.
still time for you.
Well, and I do too, and well, and I really do too.
I
So
do.
that's so and part I suffered a rotator cuff injury in
Okay.
2019, which was just so frustrating because then COVID and everything else. And I can hit ball. I play a round of golf pain free, but it's bashing buckets and buckets of balls. Like when I
Mm.
played golf with my husband and son a couple weekends back, you know, I'm hitting it 323 on the course. So with training, I feel like I could be there, and still I would like to go to one more world championships
Mm.
where if I don't come top 10 in the world, then I will gracefully bow out on my terms.
So does the
I feel
second linger in you?
it's,
Like,
oh, for sure,
it's
because
just,
I feel like
yeah.
the choice was made for me. I didn't get
Mm.
to make that choice because of my rotator cuff injury. injury. So there's that part of me still. But if there's anything I can say, you know, I look at some of the athletes now, and I wish, I try to caution them. I try to say, you know, they think that having 100,000 followers on social media is like, okay, well, here's my career. Well, what's the ROI on that? Like, that's great. You
And
have
what
lots of,
happens when social media ever gets shut down?
right? Like, so you think that
Yeah.
that's your value,
Mhm.
but you know, and I think that they, oh, I post this, and they spend all this time
Mhm.
creating content and posting. And yes, there's definitely influencers that get paid. What percentage of people are actually influencers who actually make a decent living doing that? And there's definitely some out there, but for most people, that's just having 100,000 likes while you live in your parents' basement because you can't afford to move out, because that's what you're
Yeah,
focused
I
on.
like to say too, like instead of being a consumer, be a creator of content. So
Absolutely.
contribute something of value, contribute
Absolutely.
and get off. You're
Well,
gonna
and get
feel
off.
one way
And then the other
better.
thing is,
Yeah.
if you're going to contribute, how do you make that into a career? And then knowing your own the other thing, if I could pass on to anyone, know your brand. And even if you're done being an athlete, as you move forward, you have to have a brand. So for instance, sometimes, you know, some of the younger generation might think, oh, well, you know, especially athletes are typically very fit, very strong. And, you know, if you wear, oh, there's the short skirts and the tight tops, and yes, it might get lots of likes, but is that going to get you a corporate
Yeah.
consideration? Is that going to get a sponsor? Is that,
I
yeah,
did you ever struggle with body image? I found when
oh,
I like, I mean, I
100%.
constantly was super fit, and especially after breast cancer, 6 surgeries, I gained 30 pounds. But when I look in the mirror and I don't see myself uber fit, I definitely have this like disconnect
Well, and
of
even for me, I had a breast cancer scare, because you said that this is an open book. I ended up having a biopsy and the whole 9 yards. Everything's okay, but I've gained weight since then that I haven't lost yet. It's very difficult, especially
Mhm.
knowing that how fit I have been and how strong, and what I, you know, but it's difficult. And as we age, it's tough to lose, and the body image of all of that, and then your confidence and how
Yeah.
you feel in your clothes. You know, it's difficult, and especially
Yeah.
for women. I think, you know, we have an extra layer of that, how that feels, and how hard that is.
Yeah. But you still show up.
But you still show up. But you still show up.
You
Maybe
still
with Spanx,
and you have
maybe with Spanx,
someone
but you still show up.
and you have someone who's telling you your videos got them through one of the toughest periods of their
Oh,
life. Like it's funny how we obsess over, 10, 20, 30 pounds. Meanwhile, your content and your contribution because of your heart and your impact that you've always wanted to give to the world is being consumed by someone who's feeling at their lowest of lows. Well, like
so
amazing.
exactly. So there's Simon Sinek has well, he has many books, but one of his books is, you know, what is your why? And
Mm,
I realized that this is my why. Like, this
mhm.
is why I do what I do. That lady sharing that story with me, that inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing, and to know that I'm on the right path. And because you're right, Janine, is there anything more important when, yeah, sure, maybe I feel like have added a few
Yeah.
lbs, don't look as great in my dress as I used to, but let's really, you've been
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
mastectomy, you know, not knowing if you're going to survive this.
I still haven't dropped the extra weight. I just started getting back to the gym, but as much as I say it doesn't bug me, it does. I definitely like I put on clothes and there's things in places that weren't any,
Yeah,
but I know, like I have is it on right now? I have a necklace and it says worthy on it.
yeah,
And I'll remind myself and be like, no, you are worthy. I always have little reminders because
that's
even
wonderful.
those that seem like, I think it's important for especially young athletes or anyone,
Mhm.
even though you appear successful on the outside, you still suffer from
Oh,
doubt. You still suffer
all
from,
the time I do.
yeah,
Here I get these incredible compliments from women all around the world who are watching my videos, or when they come to my school, and, oh, Lisa, I've learned so much. Every day I still have doubt,
yeah.
which, as you talk
Mhm.
about the imposter syndrome, that I still think, you know, I don't feel great about myself, or I don't feel, and then thinking, you know, can I inspire other people when I'm not feeling great about myself? But that's
I've
when you
had
find,
those.
you dig deep, and then
Yeah.
you go back to, what is your why? And to
Hmm.
know, you have to have that belief. I truly do make a difference. What I do and what I say is important, and it's
Mm.
helping others. And so being very clear on what is your why, you know, and I think that's also what's going to help those your athletes, that once they're going into the retirement, what is your why? You know, and then also, what are you passionate about? Because you can take, yes, okay, perhaps you were, whether it be a volleyball player, you know, basketball, hockey, whatever it is. Well, okay, well, not everyone can make a career out of that. But what was it that you loved about it? Are you a people person? Are you an organizer? So take your gifts and talents that made you such a great athlete, and how is that a transferable skill to work?
Yeah.
And then, but something that you enjoy doing, right? So if you're a people person, what you need to be in a job, a role, a future, a career that surrounds you with people, if that's where your energy comes
Yeah.
from.
And what I love that you said, Lisa, you said about helping others. If you can't stop focusing about yourself, go and help others until you get, because it does create an energy in you of
Absolutely.
that helps you get back into action, and then you start
Yeah.
to take time for yourself. So I love that you said that. Such an important piece. Any final, I'm trying to think, is there anything that I haven't asked about your
Well,
athletic
actually,
career?
just to even
Yeah.
go longer on your point, I love that you just said that. Volunteer.
Oh
Part of
yes,
what
yes, yes,
I think
yes.
it's actually our responsibility
Mhm.
as athletes. And every athlete that's listening to this, you got to do what you love for
Mhm.
potentially for a living. You know,
Yep.
you've been at the top of your sport. Like for me, I'll start with golf. So I've had what golf has provided me and with the joy I have. So I volunteer for Alberta Golf, in which we have huge mandates to help make it affordable. And how do we get more juniors and women in a family sport, active living, low impact, outdoors, you know, healthy bodies, healthy minds, all of that. I volunteer for that. So I think it's our responsibility to give
Mhm.
back. And to your point, when you do, you get the joy that you get from that, and the happiness that can help refocus, you know, the tough times that you're having. But and even like for I volunteer for Hockey Alberta Foundation. As I said earlier, I can't skate backwards, and I definitely cannot go far down. But I volunteer for the Hockey Alberta Foundation because our mantra is every kid, every community. So I
Mm,
want every child in Alberta to be able to enjoy hockey, and I don't want finances to be a barrier for them. So I give of my time and talents so that any child in Alberta can have the gift that my child has had. And I
yeah.
think we need to do that as athletes. As we move on, you have to give back to the sport that brought you so much joy. And again, in whatever capacity, and Special Olympics. I love Special Olympics,
Oh yes, 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 yes.
right?
I love that
And
too.
spend 15 minutes with a Special Olympian, you're hooked for life.
Oh, yes. Well, my previous company I was with was Sunrise Medical, and we worked with athletes, anyone that had, if you spend 4 hours with someone who's even paraplegic. And I remember
Right?
calling my husband and being like, we have no reason to be fighting right
Yeah,
now.
the day we
I'm
think we're
sorry.
having a tough day, we
Yeah.
think we're having a
Yeah.
tough day,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I know it humbles you very quickly. That's
Yeah,
the power. Or I was saying to my husband, like, we should take the kids to feed the homeless or do something to show them, there's a lot we might have different things that we struggle with, but there's always someone worse.
100%.
And it's recognizing the gifts that we do have and then taking actionable steps forward so that we can work towards whatever it is that we're going towards. So I love your energy. I could talk to you forever. I'm
I
so glad
know.
this
Well, it's like
finally
when we met, Janine,
I
at that conference, it's like you and I had been friends for 20
I
years.
know. And you were watching you on stage. I mean, you inspired me so much. I mean, I started speaking in 2010, and this was before my breast cancer diagnosis. So I remember seeing you up there and I was like, that I saw myself in you and I
Yes.
knew
And you
eventually I
told me
wanted to
that,
be.
but you're a woman who you weren't threatened. You took time to lift another woman up. You shared that with me back then. That was a day maker for me. And that was inspiring for me, for you to share that with me. But that's you being a woman that's walking your talk, lifting other women up. So
Yeah,
thank you
thank
for that.
you. Well, thank you. I meant it genuinely and I was like, oh my God, I love her energy.
Because we are similar.
I
We're
know.
storytellers. We're high
Yeah.
energy
Yeah.
people. You know, we want to help others. So you and I have so many synergies that way.
Yeah, I do love it. So it's a pleasure having you as a guest on this series. I love all the information that you shared with us. Is there any final words before we kind of land the plane here on any conversation for athletes that struggling or around identity? Because again, sports are what you do. They're not who you are, in the spirit of life after sports, or just your own journey that you would love to make sure that the listeners pull away from this conversation.
Absolutely. If there's anything I can impart, talk to someone.
Mm,
Because in those difficult times, and often when I was embarrassed or hurt or feeling down, I kept it to myself. I was worried about being weak or not wanting people to know that I wasn't there. Like even when I had my son Luke, I have no problem sharing. I felt like a failure as a mom. He was crying. The breastfeeding wasn't working. I became a recluse. I shut the blinds. I wouldn't answer my phone. I had a girlfriend knock, like banging on my door with a Starbucks. She's like, I'm not leaving. And
She's a good
finally
friend.
she wouldn't leave. She wouldn't leave. So I opened the door and I started bawling, but it wasn't
Uh,
until I started letting people in,
mm,
because there are people. I want every person, every athlete that's listening to this know there are people that care about you. There are
hmm.
people there that will listen to you. Please don't
Yeah,
suffer in silence. Talk to people. They will help you. They will help guide you. Share how you're feeling, because I think that's what starts us in the downward spiral,
it
is when
totally is.
we just keep it to ourselves.
And athletes do, not only do we struggle with identity, we struggle with isolation because you usually come from a team or a group of people around you that are following you on your craft. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, no one wants an autograph anymore. And oh, I don't get the free dinner and I don't get the sponsorship deal and I don't get the. But we define our worth by that identity.
Yeah,
And that's why I always tell athletes, like, don't be afraid to take off the jersey. You
right.
know, that part of you will always exist. Once an athlete, always an athlete, you know, you just got to take that time for yourself. So I really appreciate you saying that. It's super important. Well, you guys, you heard it here with Lisa. And how do I say your last name?
Vlooswyk, Vlooswyk. See, now
Vlooswyk.
can you see Lisa Longball? Great nickname, right?
Yeah, Lisa Longball. Stick with that. This is episode 65 of Tiger Talk Thursday, transitioning to life after sports. So grateful to have you on the series. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janine, for having me. And thank you for what you are doing for all the athletes out there that are transitioning and trying to find their next why.
I love it. Thank you.